everyone, welcome back. Of course it's Allison, but I'm using Holly today. So this is going to be a recent story. A lot of the stories I've been telling lately since I've returned to telling stories are ones that happened years and years ago, but this is a recent story. This is the story of why I was in the hospital 3 weeks ago, and I posted about it on my community tab, a bit on Instagram, but I didn't go into the details. I mean, a few people I've messaged and told, but I haven't really gone into the full details, so I was like, why not do this now? Now, this story is called Back with a Vengeance because I had to make a pun because that's just who I am. Because it has to do with another story that happened nearly 5 years ago, but I told like nearly 4 years ago. So it happened in 2021, I told the story in 2022. And if you haven't seen that video or don't really remember, link in the description, watch that before you watch this because it's a continuation of that story. And I am not going to be recapping that whole story. I'm going to bring up some of it, like some points to like compare this time to that time, but if you want the whole detailed story, what happened, go watch that video because this is not that. It's just a similar experience. So yeah, so let's jump into the basics. As I've stated before, for the last 3 years we've had no doctor, and I have severe health anxiety. I have a whole notes app list of problems, and I am convinced every day that I'm going to die and end up in the hospital because of my problems. But it hasn't happened. I haven't been in the emergency room since the incident nearly 5 years ago. But a few weeks ago, for once, my problems did land me in there. So let's just jump right in. So years have gone by since this incident, and even as I said, over the 1 year in 2022, the pain hasn't been that bad. It's still been there. Like, when I try and move a certain way, it happens. And I can't move a certain way. Like, back in 2024, like, I tried to do these stretches in my little voices group at school, and I could not lean that far back. And then when we went to, like, this university for this little girls' conference, we did this yoga thing, and certain poses I could not do because it would hurt my back. So yeah, for the last few years it has hurt a little bit if I move a certain way or do certain things, but nowhere near as bad as that morning in August 2021 when I was paralyzed and completely unable to move. So that's been good. Over the last few years, there are days where it occasionally would kind of hurt a bit more, but I didn't connect it to the incident from 5 years ago. I'd be like, oh, maybe I pulled something, maybe it's period related, like, you don't know. And again, it was never as bad as that day. And I've been terrified for years about that happening again, but it didn't. Like, that was my worst nightmare, it happening again. Like, ever since that day in 2021, I would sleep on, like, multiple pillows, not at school or, like, my bed at school or hotels or anything like that, because I couldn't bring a million pillows, but I was always fine. However, in my bed at home and everything like that, always sleeping on a bunch of pillows. But then again, my bed for years was trash. I slept on my mattress on the floor for, like, over a year, and that was okay. And then for the last year, or nearly a year now, I've had my new bed, and it's great. But still, because I'm OCD and paranoid, I would sleep on multiple pillows because the idea of lying flat and having that happen again scares me, because like, I was not going to get stuck and in that horrible pain, horrible situation again. So this happened on July 14th. I don't remember what like day the pain started though, but I was in the hospital on July 14th. But a few days before that, I started getting more back pain than usual. And it was hard. Like, I'd try and move certain ways and it would hurt. Like, I'd try to move ways that normally don't hurt me, but they suddenly would hurt me, and it was very, very strange. So it was really confusing, but I was thinking maybe it's a period related thing because I have the most irregular periods like ever, both in the timing, like when they happen, and how it is. Like, every time it's different pain, different symptoms before, different symptoms after. So usually when something weird happens, I'll be like, oh, hopefully this means I'm just near that. And then if it happens like 2 days later, I'm like, okay, phew, it's probably just some weird PMS symptom. Anyway, so I started having back pain for a few days, and back pain is not usually a symptom I get around periods, but again, since it's different every time, I'm like, maybe that's just what it is this time. So I was worried about it, but I let it go, and I was thinking, it's okay. I just cannot end up in the hospital again. And it's not that level of bad, so hopefully I'll be okay. So days before, I was complaining to mainly my mom about the pain. She's like, oh, you're fine, don't worry. And I was like, what if I end up in the hospital again? And she's like, oh, you won't. So the day before, we were like 2 days away from my aunt and cousin from France who were coming to visit us, and our rec room was a disaster, and that's where they were supposed to be sleeping. In the end, we didn't get the room finished, so they slept upstairs, but at that time, we were really trying to finish it. So, like, I was helping my mom by, like, standing on boards while she put the flooring down, and the day before I ended up in the hospital, she was like, hey, can you, like, take this broom up and get cobwebs? And I got a few, but after a while, that was really hurting my back, so I had to stop. And she's like, oh no, I hope you're okay. And I'm thinking, yeah, me too. So the day I go to the hospital, I wake up and it's a pretty normal day, and it's not hurting me, I'd say, any worse than the last few days. So I woke up and was doing everything as normal, and then I was doing my usual pacing and daydreaming when suddenly something changed. Suddenly, my back pain got so much worse. I could not stand up straight, and I would try and sit down. I was like, okay, clearly I need to sit down. I couldn't sit down or lay down because I felt like I was going to get stuck again, like how I got stuck 5 years ago. And I was like, no, this cannot be happening again. So I suddenly ran out to my mom and I'm like, Mom, my back pain just got really weird and I feel like I'm stuck and I can't sit down. And she's telling me, you're fine, you just gotta lay down. So we go upstairs and I could walk up the stairs, and she's trying to get me to lay down on the couch, and she'll give me this heating pad, and she's trying to get me to lay down, but I was like, no, I can't, because it hurt too much to try and lay down, and I was terrified, again, that I was going to get stuck, because at this point, while the pain was not as bad as 5 years ago, this is the worst it has hurt since. And I was thinking, something is wrong. So she's trying to get me to lay down. Like, come on, lay down. And I'm like, no, I can't, I'm scared and it hurts. So eventually she realized, for once, I'm not really being dramatic. For once, this is different. So she says, I think we have to go to the hospital. And I immediately panicked, no. Because when you haven't been to the hospital in 5 years and you're going for the same reason you went 5 years ago, your brain goes, this is that day again! Panic now! And I was terrified because when you have severe health anxiety, hospitals scare you. Emergency rooms scare you. Because I was terrified I was going to go in there and die. I was thinking I might never come out because that scares me. And I was like, oh my God, it's the thing from 5 years ago. It's just gonna kill me now. I was also terrified because if you watch the original Storytime, you will know they did not treat me nicely at the hospital that day at all. They yelled at me. They accused me of faking it. They were not helpful in giving us any answers at all. It was terrible. And I was terrified to go back to that same hospital and go through all that again. I was also terrified they were going to force me to get needles and blood work like last time. And when you have a severe needle phobia, that's not good. But my mom was saying, I think we have to. So she took a while to get ready, and I did too. Because unlike last time, I wasn't paralyzed on the floor needing an ambulance to take me. This time, I could actually stand and walk. Last time, I was stuck laying in one position and I couldn't move at all. Like, this time, it was laying down and sitting that was painful. Last time, I couldn't stand or walk at all. But this time, yeah, laying and sitting was going to be painful, so I refused to do it. But I was like hunched over and just terrified. But this time I could walk. I walked downstairs and I changed my sweater, put some makeup on, and because I looked terrible, and I grabbed my phone because last time I had nothing and it was really awful. So this time I was able to get some stuff and it was good. And I was worried because, again, this was not as bad as last time. Last time I couldn't move at all. This time I could stand and walk. It was hard and it hurt, but I could do it. But I was worried that even though it's not as bad right now, what if it gets to that point? Because when I woke up that day in 2021, it was really bad from the moment I woke up, but through the hours, it got worse. So I was terrified I was going to end up in that situation again. Because of my whole needle phobia thing, my mom starts texting her friend, because my mom actually works in that hospital in blood collection. Not in the emergency room, but in the lab. And she knows I refuse blood work because of my needle phobia, and she wouldn't do it on me. No, and I wouldn't want to, like, hurt her because I would. Because she's my mother, I would, like, attack her, be like, no, get off me, I hate you! Even though, of course, I don't mean that. But she was saying that if I get blood work, she wants her friend in blood collection to do it because they are far more skilled at it than the people in the emergency room. Like, yes, they can do it, but they don't do it all day, every day, like those in the lab. So they can sometimes not be the best at it. And she thinks that has to do, like, why I had such a bad experience with it last time. So she was like, ooh, my friend says that if they make you do that before she has to go home, she will definitely do it. And I was like, I can't do blood work, I'm gonna die. So again, last time I couldn't bring anything because I didn't expect this and my phone was dead and all that. But this time I brought my phone, my water bottle, and then I slipped this into my pocket just for fun. I don't know, it's the only thing I could find upstairs. I'm like, it's a cute little bunny. Maybe that'll bring me some comfort. Anyway, so I am terrified. And my mom was like, well, we are not getting that room done today before they come tomorrow. Leah, can you do some painting while we're gone? So yeah, she did. Anyway, so I was terrified to sit down in the car, but I'm like, maybe if I lean on like the very edge of the seat, I'll be okay. Because we are not calling an ambulance again. Like, I can't go through that again. Even though the paramedics were like the nicest people out of the whole thing, I was like, I cannot go in an ambulance again. And it's not as bad. So it was a Tuesday, and I think a lot of people know the busiest days in the ER are Mondays. But we figured it's a weekday, it's still probably going to be really busy. As we start walking out to our car, we look up and see a helicopter, and though we didn't say it, we're both thinking the same thing. Oh God, I hope that's not life flight, because if that is a helicopter going to the hospital currently, we're gonna be waiting forever. So we get in the car, and it was painful to sit in the car, but it wasn't too bad. And we were like, okay, how are we gonna tell this story? What if they think we're faking and crazy again? And at first my mom was saying, maybe don't mention the event 5 years ago. And I'm like, what? We have to. It's connected. It has to be. It's like something that happened 5 years ago that caused this, or like it's the same thing. Of course we have to mention that. And she said, oh, okay. And my mom was saying, maybe we won't have to wait too long. Like, if they can see that you can't sit, like you are hunched over and cannot fully sit, and you're acting like that, they probably won't make you wait too long. So we're driving there, and of course we get stuck behind the slowest tractor, but eventually we made it to the hospital and we start walking in. And emergency rooms scare the crap out of me, but it was okay. But I was just shaking and panicking because, of course, you guys know I'm the most anxious person ever, and being in the hospital is terrifying. So we get in there, and there's quite a few people in the waiting room, and we're thinking, great. But we're like walking in wondering, where do we go? And Then they were like, okay, who's like next for triage? And that was us. So we went into triage, and of course I didn't do any of this last time because I got brought in by ambulance and was taken like right back to my room that I was staying in. But we go in there, and the nice lady is saying, okay, well, you can take a seat. And my mom's saying, yeah, so she's actually not going to be able to sit. So as usual in these situations, I kind of forget how to talk. And she's saying, okay, so what's brought you in here? And I'm like, Mom? And she's like, she's having like severe back pain. So we start explaining it to her, and I couldn't believe it. This lady actually listened. She wasn't nasty like the ones from 5 years ago. She actually listened to everything we said. And we started telling other things like, yeah, she has, regular periods. And for the last 8 months, she's had this like strange neck, eye, jaw, arm, shoulder, finger pain. We don't know if that's connected, but it could be. She's like, okay, and she's writing all this down, and she actually listened. And we told her about like approximately 5 years ago we were in here for back pain, and that time I was brought in by ambulance, and while it's not as bad this time, because again, last time I couldn't move at all. This time I could slightly move, but this is like the worst it's been since. And again, she actually listened. I couldn't believe it. She was so nice. I was kind of leaning on the chair because again, I couldn't fully sit. But yeah, she's asking us all these questions, and then she takes my blood pressure, which I don't find too painful, honestly. Then she put like the thing on my finger to get my heart rate, and she took my temperature and all that. And I wasn't looking at the results, but since I was panicking and anxious and scared of being in the hospital, I was shaking. And my mom didn't tell me what my exact heart rate was, but she says because of that, it was pretty high. Because again, I'm having like a panic attack. And my mom's explaining like, yeah, she's super anxious about hospitals and they were horrible to her last time. And this lady was just like, oh, that's awful, I'm so sorry. Like, she actually cared. Oh, and I should mention, when I was pacing around my room, like the second the back pain got worse, I took a junior Advil because again, at my big age, I'm still taking like children's chewable Advil, but when you're super tiny and it's what you've been taking your whole life, it works. But my whole life when I've taken that, no matter what I was taking it for, it would only take about 20 to 30 minutes to kick in. But for the last year, since the very first time I took it in January 2025, it now takes over an hour before I feel any better. So clearly I've built up some kind of tolerance for it. But still, I don't like to waste and use them all up at once, so I usually only take one. Back when I had the flu in February, I was taking like 3 at a time to get rid of my fever. But for pain and stuff, I usually only take 1. And while it takes a while, it eventually works. But at this point, even though it had been nearly an hour since I took it because we had to get ready and go in the hospital, it still wasn't working. And I was really worried, like, hopefully it doesn't start working and they think I'm faking it again. But no, it really wasn't working. So yeah, we told them that. We're like, yeah, we took that and it's not really working. Eventually, another triage nurse comes in and the other one starts telling my story to her. And she was also super nice and felt bad for me and was like, oh, like, that's so awful, honey. And like, they were both super sweet. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, hopefully our actual doctors and nurses in the room are also this sweet. But they were super nice, and then she asked me this. She asked me what my pain was on a scale of 1 to 10. And, 1 is pretty much no pain, 10 is the worst pain you've ever felt. And they didn't ask me this when I was in there 5 years ago. But if they did, in my head, of course, I would have been thinking like 10, 10, 10. Because that was and is still to this day the worst pain I've ever felt. If they had asked me 5 years ago, I don't think I would have been able to say 10 because they already thought that I was crazy and faking it. So even though it was the worst pain, and I don't think it would be unreasonable for me to call that a 10 when I was paralyzed and couldn't move, and again, in the worst pain I've ever felt, I feel like if back then they asked me and I said 10, they would have been like, oh my god, no. A 10 is getting run over by a truck or literally getting shot. Your back pain does not compare to that, because something tells me those doctors would change the pain scale and 10 wouldn't be the worst pain you've ever felt. No, they'd consider a 10 to be the worst pain humanly possible, which is not the same thing. So again, they didn't ask me that last time, but if they did, again, even though it was a 10, I feel like I would have had to say like 8 or 7 or something, because they already weren't taking me seriously. So even if I told the truth about how bad the pain was, they would have again thought that I was just crazy and faking it. But this time they did ask me my pain, and I was like, okay, I gotta think about this. Last time was a 10 out of 10. This is not that bad. Like, it's still really bad, but it's not that 10 out of 10 bad. But what can I say to make them not think that I'm faking it and crazy? So they asked me, and I was like, 6? And they actually, these amazing ladies asked, are you sure? You look pretty uncomfortable. I'd say this looks more like an 8. So this time they not only believed me, but wanted me to admit how bad my pain was, because they didn't want me to feel like I did 5 years ago and like, you know, not being believed and crazy. So I was thinking, you know what, I think an 8 is pretty fitting. Again, it's not 10 out of 10 like last time, but this is the worst it's been since. So I'd say a 7 or 8 is pretty accurate. So anyway, we talked for a bit and they sent us out into the waiting room. And I couldn't sit still. So I had to stand, but standing all the way also hurt. Like, I had to be slightly hunched. So instead, we stood by the wall and I was like leaning down and holding on to the armrests of the chairs. So like kind of leaning on that, because sitting was too painful, but fully standing without holding on to anything was also too painful. Like, I had to be holding on to something. Like in the triage room, it was the chair, and this sits the side of the chair. So we're just standing, and like to make it not hurt as bad, I'm like kind of dancing around and like holding on to it, kind of like shifting every few seconds to try and get comfortable, but it was not comfortable at all. So at the next point, we had to go like to the front desk and like answer questions like, where do we live? Do we have a family doctor? Which none? And I said none, and they were like, do you mean no doctor or doctor none? And I'm like, no doctor. And they gave me my bracelet, which they've actually improved the quality of. Like, for the last few years, they've been like this paper crappy material, but now they're back to like the shiny plastic. Not as quality as like back in the day when I was a kid and would get hospital bracelets, but these were decent quality. But yeah, we went back over to our wall, and I spent the next 2 hours, nearly 2 hours, leaning on the side of that chair. And I'm freaking out, thinking I'm going to die, because I'm just imagining all the terrible things this could be. I'm like, what if it's cancer, or a tumor, or MS, or sepsis, or like just thinking of all the awful things it could be. But yeah, the waiting room was packed. Also, at this point, it was nearly 3 p.m., I'd say, like maybe like 2:49. And it was quite busy, but not a lot of people were getting called back. Oh, and I'm pretty sure this guy I went to school with was out there, so that was great. Yeah, I was like, oh my god, I swear I went to school with him. Hey, I don't see you. So that was embarrassing. So we're just standing in the waiting room, or I'm leaning in the waiting room, I should say, and I made that community post where I was like, I'm at the hospital. I love you all. Like, I know it sounds like I'm being dramatic, but like, I'm genuinely scared. And then by pure coincidence, my dad happened to be delivering something into the hospital because that's his job. He delivers things places. And he was like, okay, I'm gonna walk into the emergency room while I'm at it to see my daughter and my wife. And he looks at me and he's just like, hey, you guys hanging in there? And I'm like gonna cry. And I'm like, Daddy, if I die, can you help me write my death letter? And of course he has to make a joke and he's like, well, if you die, I wouldn't be helping you, I'd be doing it for you. Funny. But he's saying, yeah, that does not look comfortable. And, before he left, he's like, hang in there, kiddo. And I'm thinking, what if I never see my family again? What if I die? Anyway, throughout it all, not many people were getting called in. A few people did, though. And eventually, we start talking to the lady who's sitting on the chair next to us. Not the one I'm holding on to, but the one in the middle. And eventually, she starts talking to us, and we start talking to her. And she's, asking if I want to sit, thinking I just don't want to because I don't want to be rude and sit next to her. And we're saying, no, it's, my back. I can't sit. And she's saying, I was wondering why you weren't because you do not look comfortable. And I'm like, yeah, I can't sit, but thank you. And we start talking to her. And again, it's almost 3, and she says she's been in there since 11. And she starts talking to my mom. And she starts describing why she's there. And we realize it's a similar thing to why my mom was recently in the ER. And my mom's like, that sounds exactly like what I had. Yeah. And they start talking, and then other people walk by and recognize my mom because again she works there, so she knew all these people and they're talking to us. And because of that, my mom keeps running to the car to call people and running to her locker or in the hospital to get stuff and talk to her friends in the lab about me. But yeah, she eventually she kept going back and forth, and I still wasn't getting called. So our new friend she starts telling us, yeah, I've been here since 11, and at this point I just have to laugh because it's insane the things that are happening out here. Someone got kicked off a horse, and then I think they wheeled a dead body out in front of everyone because it was covered, and it's been chaos out here. And we all agree, hopefully I get called soon, because she even said, yeah, standing like that can't be good for your back. That is not high enough to lean on. And my mom agreed. So we were out in the waiting room for nearly 2 hours, and about 3 people got called during that entire time. Eventually, Mom can't stand to see me lean on that tiny chair any longer, so she's saying, I'm gonna go get you something higher to lean on. So she comes back with this big wheelchair and has me lean on the back of that, and it's a little bit higher, so it's a little bit better. But just a few minutes after doing that, I actually got called back. So even though the wait was still almost 2 hours, I was placed on higher priority because I got called in before people that were waiting when we walked in. When they called me back, most of the people who were still waiting when we got there nearly 2 hours ago, they hadn't been called. So even though they called very few people in the meantime, I was placed up on priority, even though it was still a very long wait. So they call me back, and our friend is happy for us. We never got her name, but she was so nice, and she's like, oh, good for you. I really hope you can figure this out. And I'm thinking, yeah, me too. So we pick up our stuff, and I walk in, and I'm still quite hunched over. So I'm walking, but it hurts. And I walk in, and I'm wearing makeup and stuff, but I'm just wearing this sweater and then
Hello Kitty character pajama pants.
But yeah, we get called back into the unit. And whenever I went to the ER when I was a kid, we'd be placed in private rooms. This time, we were not in that. We were placed in the whole emergency room unit where privacy between beds is divided by curtains. And let me tell you, what I learned throughout this whole experience, a curtain is not a wall. Who knew? So this nice nurse, I think her name was Emma, she brings us to my bed, which is in a tiny corner with a chair, a bed, some machines, and divided by curtains. And I was thinking, I am not going to be able to sit in bed because I'm terrified of getting stuck and it hurts too much. But unlike last time when they were screaming at me, get up, sit up, do this, she was patient and she was like, okay, do you want to try yourself or do you want me to help you? She was so nice. So eventually I did manage to lift myself in bed. I wasn't laying flat, but I was laying kind of like sideways with my legs crossed, and it wasn't too bad to stay in that position. So she like lifted the back of my bed up, so I was kind of like sitting up but also laying down, so I was comfortable. And she even said, I'm sorry, it's probably going to be a bit of a wait, but at least you're out of the waiting room, and we agreed. Unlike last time when we were sat with no help until the doctor came in like hours later, this time, they were actually giving us stuff before the doctor came in, long before the doctor came in. So like last time, they didn't offer me any medication until after I saw the doctor and after I had blood work done and all this stuff. But this time, she offered me medication before then. So I realized I didn't say in my video from years ago what the name was of the strong medication through the needle that helped me, but it was Toradol, and it's like a pretty strong thing. But this time, before we saw the doctor, she offered me Tylenol. And once again, they kind of like gave me the option. She gave me that because she's like, even though you had like a junior Advil just a few hours ago, like this is not going to hurt you and it might help you. So even though I'm not a fan of medicine, she brings me the Tylenol, and it's liquid. And I really do not like liquid medicine. It makes me gag. I'm super sensitive to tastes and smells, but it actually wasn't so bad. So she brings me this little cup, and I'm like smelling it because I smell everything. And she's saying, oh, it's cherry, like it's not very bad, but in case it is, I've also brought you some apple juice. So I've gotten better at taking medicine since I was a kid, so I took it in a couple sips, but I did get it down, so that was good, and my mom was happy. And then after, they gave me this little cup of apple juice, and I'm thinking, last time they left me with nothing, no drinks, nothing. I didn't eat until like 6 o'clock when I got home. But this time, they were offering us stuff. Okay, to be fair, I'm sure years ago if I asked for something, they would have. But this time, I didn't even ask, they just brought it to me. Also, apple juice is my favorite, so I love that they had that. And they didn't ask what I liked, they just brought it, and it happened to be something I really liked. So I took the medicine, took the juice, and that was all good. And then she's asking me, does anything help it? Like ice or heat? And you know, heat usually helps me with like pain and stuff. And my mom's saying, I tried to get her to use this heating pad at home, but I couldn't get her to lay down to use it. So instead, they brought me these 2 warm blankets. They put like one behind me and then one over me, and it was really nice. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, this time they were actually giving me things and taking care of me before we even saw the doctor. It was crazy. Anyway, so she keeps talking to us, and she's super nice, and my mom explains like what they did to me years ago, how they yelled at me and they were whispering about me and thought I was faking it, and she was shocked. And she doesn't know who we're talking about, even we don't know their names. But she just said, wow, I'm so sorry that was your experience. Actually validating us, like, what? So I was like as comfortable as I could have been, like with my blankets, and finally sitting after hours of standing. And she shows us where my call light is on the side of my bed, which it was actually on the side of my bed. Last time, it was across the room. And again, who actually can reach that even if they can walk? But it's crazy, because last time I couldn't move at all, and yet they're casually like, so your call light's across the room. I didn't end up pressing it, but if I did, how on earth was I meant to reach that? To be fair, yes, my mom was there, so if we needed something, she could have gone out and pressed it. But since it was right by the door, it would take the same amount of energy to just go out and be like, hey, we need something. So it doesn't make any sense. But this time, it was right on the side of my bed, so if I actually did need to press it, I'd be able to. Man, like, that's another point for the ER in 2026, because here, they've actually been pretty amazing so far, unlike 2021 where it was just... Anyway, so then came the hard part. Waiting. And I was as comfortable as I could have been, and I was not as in much pain as in 2021, but I was still quite uncomfortable. But honestly, I was the best I could have been in that position. Warm blankets, I had my phone, and it was just, I don't know, the best it could have been. But I was still worried about, like, if they were going to tell me I'm dying, so it made my OCD spiral. And I was also worried because it's been long after since everyone in the lab has gone home, so if I need blood work, it's going to be these ER nurses and doctors who are not professionals at it. So I was just thinking about that, and I was so scared what needles they were going to make me do, if I was going to have to stay in the hospital forever, if I was going to die, if they were going to tell me I was dying. Like, I was just scared. But we ended up waiting in there for 3 hours. And like, my mom was going outside back and forth multiple times. She went out to the car, and then she went out to like buy paint and things, and when she came back, I still hadn't been seen. Like, she had to go out and buy things because, again, we had to prepare this room for tomorrow, and she had to like talk to my dad, and they were discussing things like, if I end up here forever, we might switch, so like he'll come and stay with me and she'll go home. Like, it was chaos. But yeah, my mom like went out and back multiple times, was gone for quite a while, and they still hadn't seen me by the time she got back. So we were waiting forever, and honestly, I don't feel like the Advil helped much. I was still in pain, but thankfully it wasn't like as bad as last time again. So it didn't really work. So that also had me worried, like, why isn't this working? Does that mean it is a serious, deadly thing? But I was about as comfortable as I could have been, and more comfortable than I was after standing and leaning for 2 hours. So after a while, Emma comes back in, and she's like, hey, still hanging in there? And at that point, my mom was gone. It was just me. And I was like, yeah. And she said, okay, well, the doctor is still making rounds, so hopefully it won't be too much longer for you. How's your pain now? And this time I said like a 6 again. But I don't know. I don't know if my pain changed at all from the medicine or anything, but I was more comfortable than I was standing earlier. So I said, 6. And she said, okay. And then she left. And then we didn't end up seeing her again because, they eventually changed shifts. So we didn't see her again, but she was super nice, and I couldn't believe it. Because again, last time the nurses and doctors were terrible, but she was actually nice. So we were in that room for about 3 hours, and it was a nightmare. But I was as comfortable as I could have been. Last time while waiting, I was in extreme pain. This time I was in pain, but it wasn't as bad as last time, to where I was like, if they don't come in right now, I'm gonna die. So after 3 hours, our doctor finally walks in. And it was funny. She walked in, saw my mom, and was like, oh, hi again. Because she was the same doctor my mom had a few days ago when she was in for her issue. So, kind of funny. But unlike that nasty, evil doctor from 2021, this doctor was lovely and amazing. So she's asking, what's bothering me? Can you show me where your back is hurting? How does it hurt? And it's kind of hard, so she was like, can you stand up? And unlike last time, I could actually both sit and stand for her to look at my back. Last time, I couldn't, and they yelled at me. But something tells me, even if I couldn't this time, this nice doctor wouldn't have yelled at me. So I stand up, and she starts examining my back, and immediately, she has scoliosis. And I was like, huh? And she's looking at my back, and she's like, yeah, see, it's like scoliosis. And I was like, oh my god, is my life ruined? And she's like, no, you're gonna be fine. And I was like, I can't believe it. So she's asking me questions and looking at my back and all that. And then eventually I start laying back down. By the way, before the doctor came in, I'd say for like the last hour, I was like, I really need to pee. But it's like common sense that if you're in the ER, you don't just go to the bathroom whenever, because a lot of the times they're gonna want a urine sample. And if you just went, well, you're gonna be in there for quite a while until you have to go again. So I was considering like, maybe I should like buzz the nurse and be like, hey, I know the doctor hasn't seen me, but maybe I should do a urine sample, like, just in case. Because, yeah, last time, like, after the doctor saw me, she was like, yeah, we want that. But I didn't ask. But when the doctor finally came in, and, like, I was too afraid to move anyway, so I didn't really want to get up and go to the bathroom, because my mom was like, have you tried to move at all? And I said, no, I want to, like, wait until the doctor tells me to move in case it's like last time and I can't move a certain way, or I can, but I can only do it very limited, and they get stuck and they can't see what they want to see. So I was like, I don't really want to move too much. But anyway, after the doctor got me, like, standing and stuff, my mom brought up, like, yeah, she does need to go to the bathroom, like, so, like, should we do, like, a urine sample? And the doctor said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So unlike last time when I could not move and they threatened me if I didn't walk to the bathroom, they were gonna give me a catheter and I had to get my mom to carry me there, this time I actually could walk to the bathroom by myself. And much like last time where it was like across the hallway from my room, again, it was like right across from my bed. So yeah, I go in the bathroom, take care of that, and after I go back to my bed while my mom, like, you know, labels everything, gives it to the whoever. So then we're left waiting, and thankfully they did not suggest blood work because, God, I couldn't go through that again. Also, again, in this ER where it's divided by curtains, you hear everyone's business and everyone hears yours. Yeah, I heard everyone's story and everyone heard mine. There is no privacy in there. So it's a good thing they didn't make me get blood work, or God, that whole department would have heard my tantrum, screaming, hyperventilating, crying. So thankfully no one had to hear that because it didn't happen. I'm sure enough people heard it last time when we were in a private room. I can't imagine how bad it would be in this room where you hear everything, even like 7 beds down. Like, you hear everything, every conversation. So thankfully they did not ask for blood work, and it's good, not only because I didn't want it, but also because, you know, if I had to get it, it'd be one of these ER people. And again, they're good at it, like, they're fine, but they're not great at it. So a lot of the times they can miss, they can do it more painfully than they do in the lab, and sometimes they're just not as trained. They can only try, like, from everything my mom's told me about how her work goes, they can only try a couple of times before they have to get someone else to try. And in the ER, like, they will try different nurses and different doctors, but if they really can't get someone, they will call someone from the lab to come and do it because they're usually fantastic at it and they can get it right away. Like, my mom even overheard, like, some people getting it done and them being like, we cannot get it to work. And my mom's just sitting there thinking, I bet I could get it to work. So, yeah. Anyway, my mom was also friends with, like, the receptionist and stuff, so every time she walked out of there, it was like, oh, hey, me again, you know me, we're friends, we've known each other. Oh, as I mentioned, even though the wait times were still ridiculous, I still got in, like, way sooner than other people who were waiting out there forever. Like, only 3 people got called in between the 2 hours I was in the waiting room. And again, I was called in before people who were waiting for a lot longer. But some people, eventually, they just decide to leave. As I said, our friend we made out there was waiting out there since 11. And I'd say about like 30 minutes after I got called into my room and my mom went out for the first time, it was like past 6 o'clock now and she was still waiting out there. And they looked at each other like, oh my God. And then my mom came back and was like, she is still out there. She's like eating something now. I think she eventually left is what my mom said because she got tired of waiting because that is ridiculous. 7 hours for nothing. But, you know, the reason it can take so long in the ER, it's not always their fault, but it's really frustrating. So I go back to my bed and I wait around for a bit until this new nice nurse comes in. I think her name was Regina. Yeah, I can only remember some of their names. The doctor's name I know, but it's kind of hard to pronounce. So. But yeah, Regina comes in and she is super nice, and she like rechecks like my vitals and blood pressure and all that again. And she's like, that is still a little off. I think that means you're still in pain. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not like paralyzing, so I think I'm okay. And she says, wow, you look young for your age. Like, and yep, I get that a lot when you're 20 and still look 7. But yeah, she says that and then says, oh, you don't have to worry. When everyone else is older and getting like Botox and surgery, you'll be able to just sit there and smile. Oh, it's funny. But after she like asks about my pain again, and she's like, do you not like needles? And I'm wondering if that's because my mom asked about like she's scared if she needs blood work, or if that's because they read my charting notes from last time, where I'm sure they wrote that I was so anxious about getting blood work and panicking and crying. They have to write that and chart that apparently. They can't write like crazy or anything like that, like they get in trouble. But if they've read my charts from a few years ago, they probably saw that. She starts asking me if I want a Toradol shot, which is what they gave me 5 years ago, which finally made it so I wasn't in paralyzing pain. And I thought about it because, of course, it's a needle, and I don't like needles. You guys know why. But when I went there 5 years ago, the blood work was quite painful, and that's where I was mostly panicking and crying, and they gave me the option afterwards for pain medication. As I said in the other video, they're like, you can take this oral Tylenol, or for faster and stronger, you can take this Toradol shot. And despite everything, I was already in so much pain, already survived 1 needle that day. I said, just give me the shot. And that actually didn't hurt to get done. It was just in the shoulder, and it didn't hurt, and it helped me. So I could finally move, sit up, and not be in agonizing pain. And eventually, hours later, made it so I could walk out. And again, they were giving me a choice. I mean, I already took the Tylenol, and earlier they didn't offer me a Toradol shot. But I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, if someone gave me the choice, do you want blood work? I'd be like, absolutely not. But with this, I was actually thinking about it and considering it. And I made my choice not so much out of fear, but out of logic. I ended up saying no because while I was definitely still uncomfortable, I was like, I don't think it's bad enough to need that strong of a painkiller, and worth it enough to still be nervous about the shot. Because again, it didn't hurt last time, so I wasn't worried about the pain from that, but I was still worried like maybe this time it will hurt or it'll be more scary. I don't think it would have been, but I was just like, I don't think my pain is bad enough this time. Like, again, last time I was paralyzed. I needed that Toradol shot before I could even, like, move my feet again, before I could sit up again, before I could even slightly move without being in extreme pain. And even last time after I took the Toradol shot, I still could not stand or walk easily. Like, I could not walk to the bathroom, even though I just took that. Like, I could not walk there, and that's why they threatened me with the catheter. And then when they brought me down to the x-ray, like, I needed to be in a wheelchair, and I couldn't stand for the x-ray, even though I was on the Toradol. It wasn't until a few hours later where it kicked in enough to where I could stand and walk. This time, even though I was in pain, without Toradol, I could walk to the bathroom by myself. I could move. So I was thinking, last time I was totally paralyzed and could not move at all until I was on Toradol, and then even then there were still things I couldn't do. This time I'm in pain, but I can now sit and lay comfortably, and I can do everything. It still hurts, it's still not easy, but this time I can somewhat do it, even without it. So I don't think I need it. Yes, it probably would have made it so I felt like a lot better, but I was like, it's not 10 out of 10 like last time. So I don't think I need to put myself through like getting worried about a shot, because like it's not that bad. I can move fine enough. I don't think I need that strong of a pain medication. Also, some of the pain was driven by anxiety, and now at this point I had been seen by the doctor and she thinks it could be scoliosis. I'm thinking, like, that is not as bad as what I was worried about, so it makes me feel a little more relaxed and a little less pain, and I'm in a better state than when I came in here. Even though the Tylenol didn't help, at least now I could, like, lay in bed. I'm not stuck standing leaning over a chair. So I told her, like, no, I think I'm okay. Like, for now, if it starts getting really bad again, maybe, but I think for now I'm okay not taking that. Shortly after, this guy came to get me. Pretty sure his name was Christian. And it's funny because my mom actually knew him too. So, interesting. But he said that we were going to go for an x-ray. The same exact tests as in 2021, except this time no blood work. But anyway, we walked down to the x-ray area, which again is an improvement over last time. Even last time on Toradol, I still couldn't walk to the x-ray area. They had to take me in a wheelchair. But this time, though I was slow, hunched over, and in some pain, I was able to walk there myself. And this guy was super nice. And also different than last time. Last time, since it was the pain from when I woke up and I couldn't do anything and the ambulance had to come, I was still wearing my nightgown and they let me do the x-ray in that. But this time, since I was like dressed and stuff and, you know, not in pajamas, he's asking me like, at first he's just like, do you have like a bra on? And I said, yeah. Then he said, okay, I'm gonna have you like take that off. And then he's looking at my sweater and saying, actually, you should take that off too. If you have like a t-shirt underneath it, that's fine, but if not, put this hospital gown on. And at first, I thought I did have a t-shirt underneath. My mom did too, but I guess in a panic before we left, I changed and I didn't put a different shirt on, so I just had my sweater. So because of that, I had to change into the hospital gown. So he like left me in the change room and said, come out when you're ready. So I went in to get changed, and again, despite the pain, I was able to get changed and everything by myself, so that was good. So I stripped out of everything, apart from my pants and stuff, but I took off like my, sweater and the bra and like my jewelry and bracelets and all that, and I tried to put on this hospital gown. Man, those ties are complicated. I was like, I am not going to be able to get this right. This is going to fall off, and it's awkward. And the back's open, so it's super weird. But I managed to get it somewhat, at least enough to do the x-rays. So I tied things to the best of my ability and I walked out. Last time, again, I was in pain. We had to do the x-ray laying down. This time I could do it standing up. So we go in and he asks me, is there any chance you could be pregnant? And I'm just like, I laughed. I'm like, no. Asexual. I left my asexual bracelet in the change room, but yeah. I didn't tell him that, but that's of course why I'm not pregnant. Anyway, so we do a couple of x-rays and he's like teaching me how to breathe in and how to do it, and we did it and it was good. So after that, I walked back, got changed, left the gown on the side of the basket, and he walked me back to my bed. When I got back, my mom was gone, so she went out to do, call or talk to someone again. So I was just waiting in the bed by myself for quite a while. Eventually, my mom comes back, and she brings her friend from the front desk, because she, kind of knows me, too, and she's like, your mom is driving me crazy. Do you know that? And then she's saying, oh, I have scoliosis, too. And I'm like, wow, guess I'm not alone. So at this point, we're just waiting for the doctor to come back and kind of give us results and be like, is she going to order more tests or is she going to say we're good to go? So yeah, I had no idea. But of course, I'm still worried and thinking I'm going to die. Anyway, when I left the bathroom the first time, I left my little bunny friend on the nightstand or table by the bed because I was like, I don't want to lose it. But yeah, I'm just petting it and I'm like, this is the most random thing I could have brought, but I did. Anyway, at this point, my phone was nearly dead, so that was annoying. I just kind of had to wait around. And my mom gave me some candy that she bought. We had sour Skittles and some chocolate because I was pretty hungry at that point. So yeah, this time I wasn't starved in the hospital for 6 hours, thankfully. Yeah, so after a while, the doctor came back in. So she comes in and she's like, I can't see anything wrong with your back. So I'm pretty sure the pain is just from scoliosis. And we didn't even see that part on the x-ray because they x-rayed like a different part of my back. But she's like, yeah, I can see that you have that. But we didn't like check for it on the x-ray. I just noticed when I was examining you. But yeah, I think that you are going to be fine. Just take it easy for the next few days. But after that, don't underuse your back. Like, try and like use it and make sure you're gonna like be okay, because you don't want it to get weak or anything. So she's just telling me things and saying, you know, here's some resources until you find a doctor in the meantime. But like once you get that checked, you should be okay. And we're asking about like some other issues too while we're there, and she's kind of giving us some advice, but she's also like, I don't know, you gotta kind of get that checked out elsewhere. She's all nice and giving us this advice, and I asked her like, am I gonna die? And she said no. And I was like, thank you. I'm still worried I'm gonna die, for the record. Like, sometimes I don't always trust them, but like that made me feel a little bit better. And my mom's like, thank you. You have no idea what that means for her to hear that. Anyway, so we talked for a bit longer, but then she said we were good to go. And although I was still in some pain and still not walking quite right, I was able to go. So we got our stuff and thanked her and walked out. At this point, it was nearly midnight. So we'd been in there for quite a while, again, like 2 something to midnight. But we walked out and went home. And I was so relieved that I didn't die. But I started thinking, maybe I should have taken the Toradol. At least then I'd be able to like sleep and not be in much pain. But yeah, I wasn't thinking. Anyway, we went home to see the progress my dad and Leah and them had done on the room, and they made some, so that was good, and they were nice to me, which is nice because they felt bad. I still don't know if I fully believe that pain is from scoliosis, but I'm hoping that it's not serious, and I'm also hoping that nothing bad happens to me. My mom's saying like, oh no, like it's not gonna get worse throughout your life, you're not gonna end up hunched over, but I'm anxious like, but what if I do? But no, that night, I was having a really hard time falling asleep because laying down made the pain worse. Like, I couldn't sleep until like, 4 a.m. Like, I was just tossing and turning until I finally found a comfortable position and I could sleep. That night was the worst. Every night since has been okay, so that's good. That is what we're dealing with, and when we finally find an actual doctor, we can ask about all my concerns, and then I'll know for sure if I'm dying. But in the meantime, I think I'll be okay. She even said at the hospital, like the doctor's like, only in like certain situations, if you have like certain symptoms, that's an emergency. This is okay, you're gonna be fine. So hopefully I can trust them and everything will be okay. That was that trip to the hospital. So different from 2021. They actually believed me. They gave me things. They cared about me. They listened. They didn't yell at me. They didn't force me or threaten me. Like, they were actually nice and they believed me. They didn't undermine my pain. They were nice. Unlike in 2021 where they yelled at me and accused me of faking and kept saying over and over, you've obviously had some kind of fall, even though I didn't, and we told them that. And yeah, like after I guess telling them the trauma, they were extra nice to me. And my mom's saying, like, they didn't know her at all. Like, even back then, she was even smaller. She was 15. And yes, I know people like to lie. They like to drug seek. They like to make stuff up. And sometimes they're too embarrassed to say how they got hurt. But I had no reason to. I was a 15-year-old in paralyzing pain. And mom's saying, like, God, drug seeking. If only they knew she's 20 and still will not touch a drop of alcohol. Like, yep, that's me. I just want to film with my toys and not be in horrible pain. Like, I am not trying to get drugs or anything like that. Hospitals make me so anxious and I never want to be there. So, if only they knew, I would never fake. Never, ever, ever. But this time, these doctors and them actually understood. Everyone was so nice, and it was just such a different experience. Usually there, you'll get like a lot of nice ones, but there usually has to be at least one bitchy, mean person. But this time, no. Everyone was super nice. It was amazing. The long wait time sucked, but other than that, they were pretty on top of things, which of course I appreciate. I'm hoping that soon we can find a real doctor that I can, like, a family doctor, I should say, that I can ask all my problems to and get confirmed that every issue I've been worried about for the last 3 years without a doctor is not going to kill me. But yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see. Hopefully nothing bad happens. Hopefully this pain never happens again. The doctor basically just said it flares up from time to time. And we're assuming this is what they missed 5 years ago. To be fair, as awful as they were 5 years ago, part of why they could have missed this is because I couldn't stand up last time for them to fully examine my back. Meanwhile, this time, like, I was able to be hunched over and she could look at it. So honestly, the scoliosis might not even be as bad as she thinks because it might look worse from certain angles. But I'm pretty sure it's just mild and I'm hoping it won't do anything bad to me. From everything I've read, it's saying no. My mom says no, but of course, with my OCD ass, I am still worried. But yeah, when we find a doctor, we're gonna ask about this, about all my other issues, and hopefully I'll be okay because I don't want to die. I just want to be okay, not be in horrible pain, and not have a disease, and not die, and just be as normal as possible, you know? So the last few weeks, I've definitely been feeling a lot better. I've been doing like different stretches and my back doesn't seem too bad. For the first few days after, I was like kind of hunched over and I was worried, what if I'll never stand normally again? But now that it's not paining as badly, I'm definitely standing and looking more normal, so that's good. I guess we're just gonna deal with flare-ups over the years, but hopefully it's never ever as bad as it was in 2021 where I was paralyzed. I never want to go through that again. And, you know, hopefully the doctors can help us find things that work so I'll be okay and nothing bad will happen. But yeah, that was how my back pain came back with a vengeance. Oh, stupid pun, I know. But yeah, at least it wasn't as bad and I'm okay and I survived. I really thought I was gonna die in there, but for now it looks like I'm gonna live, so way. Anyway, I'm not sure if anyone's even watching this rambling at this point, but I just wanted to tell you all because, you know, I was posting on my community tab and I love you all and I just want to keep you updated on my life and let you know that I'm not dying, so that's great. But yeah, my life is complicated, but when we find a normal doctor, everything should be fine, or at least I'm hoping it will be. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my suffering. I'm just kidding. It wasn't too much suffering, thankfully. But yeah. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment if you can, and we'll see you later. Bye.